Exploratory, approximately 2 to 3, subtitles provided and may include advertisements.
Kim Yo-jung justified the coup by claiming the National Defense Line and Guard Command provoked war, warranting investigation. Of course, what they claimed was an investigation, but in reality, it was closer to a bloody purge than an investigation. The Boyguk, aligned with Kim Yo-jung's faction, serves as the North Korean Army's counterintelligence and military inspection agency. The Boyguk, under the orders of Kim Yo-jung, further strengthened the framework to ensure the success of this coup. First, the justification for arresting the Ministry of Defense was the crime of carrying out hostile acts against South Korea without properly reporting to the higher-ups. In the case of the Guard Command, the justification was the crime of seeking power and attempting to eliminate Kim Yo-jung. They began investigating the Ministry of Defense and Guard Command for alleged factional activities in the military. The Security Bureau can do secret surveillance, investigations, and arrests, but it can't arrest regimental commanders or higher without approval from the Workers' Party of Korea Secretariat. They had to get approval from the higher-ups. Coincidentally, since General Jong Taek, the director of the Geopolitical Bureau, was in Kim Yo-jung's faction, the approval process went smoothly. The Security Bureau, backed by China, and Kim Yo-jung of the Geopolitical Bureau started investigating the defense line and Guard Command. All this occurred during Kim Jong-un's funeral. Pyongyang is guarded by the Social Security Department, Pyongyang Defense Command, and 91st Capital Defense Corps. The issue was that, aside from the Social Security Department, the Pyongyang Defense Command and 91st Capital Defense Corps were under the Escort Command and couldn't be controlled. Even with the State Security Department's power, the Escort Command isn't naive and has no reason to obey them amid intense power struggles. The State Security Department considered ways to overpower the Escort Command and Ministry of Defense, excluding the Pyongyang Defense Command and 91st Capital Defense Corps. They used the Ministry of Social Security and North Korea's 3rd Corps in Nam. The State Security Department misled the 3rd Corps, claiming they'd oversee Pyongyang security for Kim Jong-un's funeral, and used this to bring many troops into the city. Because some officers belonged to Kim Yo-jung's faction, deceiving the 3rd Corps was fairly easy. While the Pyongyang Defense Command and 91st Capital Defense Corps distracted the 3rd Corps Ministry of Social Security and State Security Department forces targeted the National Defense Line and Guard Command headquarters to eliminate their leaders. If they also confirmed Kim Ju-il's identity, the plan would succeed. The State Security Department and Ministry of Social Security have about 150,000 troops combined, with 10,000 deployed in the coup. The 13th and 31st Guard Brigades fought in 4 straight battles, with all State Security Department forces mobilized. North Korea's Special Operations Forces, Kim Yeo-jung's secret weapon, were also deployed. All their bases are classified. However, due to concerns about a coup occurring in Pyongyang, some of the Special Operations Forces were stationed near Pyongyang. Coincidentally, the 6th Guard Brigade, which was stationed near Pyongyang, was loyal to Kim Yo-jung. This 6th Guard Brigade also participated in the coup. Kim Yo-jung decided that all preparations were complete and set July 29, 2026, the day of Kim Jong-un's funeral, as the start date of the operation. General Kwak Chang-sik noticed Kim Hae-jung's faction acting oddly and prepared ahead of time. This is Army Personnel Command. Regardless of their knowledge about North Korea, the Personnel Command was already overwhelmed with their tasks. They were extremely short-staffed. Sometimes one person was doing the work that used to require 4 or 5 people. Above all, the total number of soldiers had decreased, so many soldiers were facing heavy labor. The Republic of Korea Armed Forces currently faces a chronic junior officer shortage. Recently, applicants for non-commissioned officers fell by 55% and selections dropped 25%. Last year, 75% of universities didn't meet their Reserve Officers Training Corps quotas. Military academies also face challenges. 589 students dropped out in 5 years, highlighting difficulties in retaining junior officers. Recently, under half of 8,800 Army non-commissioned officer recruitment slots were filled. With about 4,000 chosen, the Reserve Officers Training Corps competition rate also fell from 3.2 to 1 in 2019 to about 1.8 to 1. The main reasons for this shortage of junior officers are said to be low wages and poor welfare benefits. Currently, a first-year sergeant earns about the same as a private first class, but after meal costs and taxes, their take-home pay is actually less than a private first class. The junior officer shortage was serious. These issues greatly affected the unit. Due to a lack of junior officers, there were too few captains, and lieutenants sometimes had to command companies of 100 soldiers. Additionally, the declining birth rate caused a sharp drop in soldier numbers. The Republic of Korea Armed Forces faced a major personnel crisis. In this situation, the Army Personnel Command tried to solve these problems, but since only social reform could resolve them, all their proposed measures failed. In fact, that was understandable because the measures they proposed were not innovative. They were just limited to things like campaigns or increasing accommodations, so these problems were not solved in any groundbreaking way. A shortage of personnel and junior officers inevitably reduces combat capability. People who shouldn't be in the military end up joining, and those who normally wouldn't qualify to become officers end up becoming officers, so incidents and accidents inevitably keep happening. The combat power of the national military was weakening. It's midnight, the day of Kim Jong-un's scheduled funeral. Kim Yo-jong had already left Pyongyang for the Nampo naval base to prepare for the operation. If Kim Yo-jong had been caught right after the operation started, it would have meant failure, so she fled to safety. She then met a Navy member from Kim Yo-jong's faction, after which her whereabouts were unknown. The Pyongyang Security Command found this suspicious and reported it to the Guard Command, which also acted fearing a possible coup involving him. Hours later, Pyongyang Security Command's movements grew more urgent. The Pyongyang Security Command performs duties similar to those of the Capital Defense Command of the South Korean military. Its main duty was to set up about 50 guard posts on the outskirts of Pyongyang to control and monitor all residents, soldiers, public security officers, government officials, local party members, vehicles, and cargo entering Pyongyang, and to provide support from the outer perimeter of the Guard Command. To prepare for Kim Jong-un's funeral, additional checkpoints were set up in the outskirts of Pyongyang, and tight security was maintained. But when North Korea's Third Corps suddenly moved from Nampo to Pyongyang, they were caught off guard. It wasn't a planned force, and they objected to sending troops into Pyongyang, leaving just the Nampo defense, saying they wanted to protect Pyongyang. As a result, the Pyongyang Security Command and the 91st Capital Defense Corps began to block North Korea's Third Corps near Daepyeong Station in Pyongyang. This place was about 13 kilometers from the center of Pyongyang, practically right in front of Pyongyang. North Korea's Third Corps would show their orders to the Pyongyang Security Command, claiming that they were assigned to guard Pyongyang. But the Pyongyang Security Command told them to go back, saying they hadn't received any such report. This led to a dispute between North Korea's Third Corps and the Guard Command. As everyone watched near Daepyeong Station, the State Security Department and Social Security forces took action. Since all attention was focused on Daepyeong Station, the security in other outskirts of Pyongyang became lax. As a result, the troops stationed outside Pyongyang disguised themselves as event personnel, while the remaining troops inside Pyongyang began their operation. The 13th Guard Brigade from Pyeongsang, South Pyongan Province, led the advance south of Pyongyang, followed by the 31st Guard Brigade from Sinuiju, North Pyongan Province, entering Pyongyang behind them. The 6th Light Infantry Brigade was based at the Ministry of Defense in Shakbong-dong, Sosong District, Pyongyang, and the 13th. On the 30th, the Guard Brigades planned to raid the headquarters of the Guard Command, located in Buksa-dong, Moranbong District, Pyongyang, and the headquarters of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, located in Haebangsan-dong, Jung District, Pyongyang. North Korea's facilities were mostly clustered, making them easy targets. Entry into Pyongyang was smooth, and the coup appeared to go well at first, but soon problems began to emerge. The Ministry of Defense ordered North Korea's Third Corps to regroup, and they did so ahead of schedule. As a result, the Guard Command's troops resecured Pyongyang and found Social Security troops and Special Operations Forces had entered the city without authorization. The Guard Command troops quickly moved toward their headquarters, the Ministry of Defense and the Workers' Party of Korea Central Committee. They went to the Ministry of Defense first. But the place was utter chaos. Initially, Kim Yeo-jung's Special Operations Forces fired on the Ministry of Defense guards and stormed the building to break through. Intense fighting during this process caused 8 casualties. After that, troops from the Social Security headquarters, who responded to reports of gunfire, as well as troops from the Rear Command and the Ministry of Defense Support Unit, all became entangled in chaos after hearing the gunshots or receiving reports and rushing to the scene. Unable to identify each other or understand the situation, they stood confused, facing off in chaos. The 6th Security Infantry Brigade infiltrated the Ministry of Defense and seized the detention facility. Sporadic gunfights erupted as both sides confronted each other over the ministry. The Guard Command surrounded the Ministry of Defense and pressured the 6th Security Infantry Brigade, even deploying armored vehicles to increase pressure. Because this unit was designed for rapid infiltration, its firepower was much lower than the Guard Command's. As a result, this later developed into a major problem.
Han Dong-woo and his men rebelled to seize state power. Bring the cannons to blow up the Ministry of Defense faction. Don't hesitate, just fire.
Seeing how quickly the PI Command moved, the Social Security Department and Security Bureau rushed to seize key facilities and kept attacking the rest. The Security Bureau tried and failed to break into the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea headquarters. The Guard Command, noticing suspicious activity, defended the headquarters firmly, leading to the Security Bureau's failure. On top of that, once the Guard Command realized that the Ministry of Defense building had fallen, they prioritized sending their troops to the headquarters of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea and began blocking the Security Bureau's forces. The Guard Command, with superior firepower, blocked the Security Bureau using armored vehicles. Although the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea headquarters appears to be 3 stories, it's actually a sturdy stone structure. They built it like a fortress, and on top of that, the inside is made like a maze, so even if you broke in, it was hard to find Kim Ju-il there. However, the Guard Command left the troops guarding the headquarters of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea in place, and sent the troops from other guard posts to Daepyeong Station, so the defense remained intact. Although the State Security Department attacked, they failed. On top of that, General Kwak Chung-sik's judgment that a coup could happen soon, based on the Pyongyang Defense Command's report that Kim Yo-jung had left Pyongyang, was also quite sharp. Because the Guard Command acted aggressively, it forced the coup forces onto the defensive, significantly impacting events. In fact, just on that day alone, the Guard Command had up to 120,000 troops. Since Kim Yeo-jung mobilized only 20,000 to 30,000 troops for this coup, there was a significant numerical difference. Even after taking the Ministry of National Defense, they couldn't capture the Guard Command or Workers' Party Central Committee headquarters, so the coup failed. Above all, if they couldn't capture Kim Ju-il, the most important person, it was essentially a failure. As a result, even greater chaos followed. As elite troops advanced to seize the Workers' Party of Korea Central Committee headquarters, gunfire erupted across Pyongyang. As Guard Command troops attempted to retake the Ministry of Defense and attacked the 6th Infantry Brigade, repeated gunfights erupted. The 6th Infantry Brigade, with less firepower than the Guard Command, was forced to retreat. At that moment, their plans collapsed. Ultimately, the 1st Class Infantry Brigade surrendered to the Guard Command after heavy losses. The Guard Command surrounded and forced their surrender, achieving victory. Kim Jong-un's funeral was indefinitely postponed due to a crisis in North Korea, giving the Kim Ju-ae faction an advantage. General Gwa Chang-sik, who had successfully stopped Kim Yo-jong's coup, tried to use this momentum to drive Kim Yo-jong out. Kim Yo-jong faced a tough political situation after her hasty coup failed. It also emerged the Guard Command wasn't behind the assassination attempt on her, making things even more awkward politically. The Kim Ju-hae faction then worked hard to purge Kim Yo-jong. They started by arresting the Ministry of Social Security Director and the 6th Alert Infantry Brigade Commander. For this coup, 40 to 50 key members of the Kim Yo-jong faction were all arrested and investigated. Torture in North Korea is beyond imagination. They were tortured until they begged for death. Kim Yo-jong's whereabouts remain unknown. After confirming she last moved to Nampo, she vanished. The North Korean Navy and Air Force kept monitoring the situation. Also, by maintaining neutrality externally, they were able to save their lives. It was hard to punish them since they didn't join the coup, and the army's focus pushed them down the priority list. There were some issues with promotions, but that was a matter for the future. There were also changes in the General Political Bureau. Director Jong Gyong-taek's approval of relocating North Korea's 3rd Corps to Pyongyang became controversial again. A major purge was inevitable. Of course, Kim Ju-hai's faction also realized that purging a large number of people all at once would destabilize the entire country, so they decided to carry out the purges gradually, little by little. Because Kim Ju-hye was very young, General Guak Chang-sik led most purges. He later became known for carrying the Guak Chang-sik list. The list documented Sichung Party defectors, allowing him to gain absolute power. He ended up purging people he didn't like. Naturally, some people disliked General Guak Chang-sik's actions. However, at the time, no one could say anything because he had such powerful authority that they could have been killed themselves, so they kept their mouths shut. During that process, General Guak Chang-sik never lost a smile on his face. China tried to boost its influence in North Korea by stockpiling weapons and goods at Nampo Port and supporting pro-Chinese factions, but these efforts were failing. General Guak Chang-sik smiled, believing he could build the North Korea he envisioned. This is Seongnam, where South Korea's 777th Command is located. Usually, it is responsible for collecting signal intelligence. Signal intelligence is one of the methods of gathering intelligence, and it involves collecting information through various signal interception and eavesdropping. Basically, it's like eavesdropping on North Korea's radio communications live. After the coup in Pyongyang, the 777th Command, monitoring radio info in real time, quickly reported the sudden event in North Korea. The South Korean military was thrown into chaos as this was the first confirmed sudden incident inside North Korea. With Kim Jong-un's funeral approaching, a coup erupted in Pyongyang. When Kim Yo-jung was revealed as the mastermind, chaos followed. The military decided to maintain DEFCON status for the time being and wanted to continuously strengthen their readiness posture. The issue was, we should have collected this signal intelligence and gathered more detailed human intelligence. Due to the 2024 Defense Intelligence Command secret leak by a civilian employee, South Korea's intelligence network on North Korea collapsed, making it impossible to get more details. All of South Korea's intelligence agencies were focused on North Korea. Significant information kept coming in, with ongoing reports that China was considering a sudden shift in North Korea. Since identifying the sudden situation in North Korea was the top priority, all other information was ignored. Also, thanks to someone in the United States who kept providing information anonymously, it was gradually becoming easier to understand the sudden situation. The Republic of Korea Army's 13th Special Mission Brigade, part of the Special Warfare Command, learned of this and began planning a decapitation operation. South Korea had long prepared a strategy to neutralize North Korea's nuclear weapons. Since 2016, South Korea has conducted decapitation operations to eliminate enemy leaders, nuclear sites, missile bases, and weapons of mass destruction facilities in emergencies. A special mission brigade was formed for this purpose. That was the 13th Special Mission Brigade. They've deployed special operations aircraft and helicopters that can covertly infiltrate at low altitude at night or in bad weather without radar detection. They provided the Special Mission Brigade with advanced equipment matching that of American Special Forces. They quietly prepared for the decapitation operation. The Defense Intelligence Command detected a sudden crisis in North Korea and sought answers by contacting the North Korean Liberal Democratic Party. The Defense Intelligence Command regularly exchanged information with the North Korean Liberal Democratic Party to monitor events in North Korea. They discovered Kim Yo-jung caused the sudden Pyongyang crisis and that all of North Korea was under deadly martial law. Commander Guak Chang-sik carried the Guak Chang-sik list and started planning a purge. Senior Director of Social Security Affairs Bang Du-seop, General Political Bureau Director Jo Kyung-chul, and Jong Kyung-taek. More than 70 people were targeted, including Oh In-yang, the head of the North Korean branch of Shiyang Group, a Chinese magnet site processing company. Many had been arrested, and the Kim Ju-hye faction was virtually chosen as successor. However, in the case of Jo Jang-hak Seon, he was lucky enough to be left off Guak Chang-sik's list. First of all, it hadn't been clearly confirmed that Jo Jang-hak Seon was part of the Kim Yo-jong faction. Jo Jang-hak Seon was attacked in a terrorist incident while returning to Pyongyang by train with Kim Yo-jong. He was hospitalized then, so he wasn't involved in the coup. That's why he survived. However, Jo Jang-hak Seon continued to support Kim Yo-jong. Because Jo Jang-hak Seon survived, Kim Yo-jong was able to keep receiving information from within the North Korean regime. In China, political maneuvering intensified after North Korea's sudden changes. China was the first to support Kim Yo-jong. As I explained before, China currently wants to expand its influence in North Korea. To win against the United States, China needs access to the Pacific and requires North Korea's help to move east. You might wonder if China owns land in Primorsky, but after the 1860 Treaty of Beijing, Russia took the whole region, stopping China from moving eastward since. Although Russia and China currently maintain a good relationship on the surface, these two countries do not trust each other. Right now, the gap between the United States and China is the smallest it's ever been. Over time, the gap between the United States and China will inevitably widen. China is losing national power because of low birth rates and economic recession. If they don't expand their influence and maintain their hegemony before that happens, they will end up losing their leadership to the United States forever. That's why China is being aggressive now. They're starting conflict while they still can. But suddenly, in 2024, North Korea and Russia signed a treaty that's almost like a military alliance, so China is now worried that it will lose all the influence it had over North Korea. So, in order to regain this influence, China has been carefully calculating its next moves. When Kim Jong-un died suddenly and Kim Yo-jong plotted a coup, China considered helping her to boost its influence in North Korea. And furthermore, since they could control Kim Yo-jong as they wished, they could consider expanding their influence even more than before. When Kim Yo-jong's coup failed, China sighed in disappointment. However, China seemed to see this as an opportunity. The 8th Combined Brigade of the 78th Group Army of the Northern Chinese government was stationed in Harbin, but they began to move toward the Dandong area. They started seeking chances to intervene in North Korea and will quickly join its politics once ready. At that time, South Korea had no idea what was happening. Focused only on North Korea's sudden changes, they missed China's larger actions.
Oh, flower, why do you bloom in the ruins of a war? Torn land crushed by boots buried in dust, yet hope still takes your hand. Though your petals are torn and stained, you rise again through pain. Your world may burn and fall apart, but you will bloom again. See you in the next video.